What's up, lords and ladies? Welcome back to another video on this channel. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of a bioactive enclosure for a bearded dragon. So with that being said, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that post notification bell button. You see that like button? Just hit it for me. It really does help a lot on this channel. But with that being said, let's get started with this video. Let's go. Okay, so this bioactive enclosure I actually had for about 3 months now. Now I have my bearded dragon Blue in there, and honestly, he's actually doing really well. I'm really happy with how the bioactive enclosure is going, and he seems to be pretty happy. However, there is some pros and cons when it comes to having a bioactive enclosure. So the very first con that I'm gonna put on this list is behavior change. I've noticed a weird behavior change in my bearded dragon. I'm not sure if it's just because he's growing up and he's going through that juvenile phase. It might be that, but when he was in a regular enclosure with just a tile setting and branches and fake plants, he seemed to be a lot more chill. But now that he has all of these places that he could hide, he could climb, it's a little bit hard to go in there and actually pick him up. And even tongue feeding him, sometimes he would not come up to you. However, it is a little bit more of a challenge, but I do see him turning around and actually being a lot more tame like my other bearded dragons, but it's gonna take a little bit more work. So I have seen a behavior change for my bearded dragon, but it's hard to determine whether it's gonna happen to every single bearded dragon. But if I was to restructure how I built the enclosure, I would have branches kind of coming towards the front of the enclosure. That way when I do tongue feed, he has somewhere where he could actually walk up to me versus me having to scare him. But overall, his behavior hopefully changes as he gets older, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated on that as well. Now the second disadvantage, and I don't know if I could call it a disadvantage, but you have to take care of plants. Now for me, I love plants. I love, greenery. I don't know. But it's a little bit hard sometimes, when you have so many reptiles, so many other things to do. Sometimes if you forget to go in there and water the plants. So I definitely have found that it's a little bit more work having to go in there and spray the plants and actually maintain them and make sure the light is good for them. So you definitely have a little bit more work on your plate, but in my opinion, it looks better. It actually is a little bit nice. For me, what I did was I just put a reminder on my phone every single day around maybe 4 p.m. I would get a reminder, and since I'm using air plants, you don't really need to wet them as much as you would other plants. But if you are gonna get a bioactive enclosure, maybe have some sort of misting system if you're gonna do tropical. But it's a little bit tricky when you're doing a desert bioactive enclosure because you don't want to go in there and wet everything, which leads me to number 3. Number 3 being, when you do go in there and mist everything, it raises the humidity up. Now, I live in Canada where in the winter it's pretty dry, so me going in there and spraying things doesn't do anything. But in the summertime when it's really humid, if I go in there and I spray even just the plants in a very small section, it does raise up the humidity. So definitely keep your eyes on that, especially if you live somewhere tropical or somewhere where the humidity is really high. You definitely might want to get different kinds of plants, or maybe not even do plants at all, because it might raise the humidity up and you don't want too much humidity in a desert bioactive enclosure. Now, a common question that I've been getting ever since I did a bioactive enclosure for bearded dragons, that question is, do your bearded dragons eat the substrate? And the answer is no. Blue does not eat the substrate. However, I have seen him try to taste it and be curious about it. However, I would never put a hatchling or a baby bearded dragon inside of a bioactive enclosure. I just know that babies tend to try to eat just about everything, but chances are, you know, most of you who get a bearded dragon get one that's a couple months old. At least that's what I would recommend. And they usually have a little bit more of an established habit where they're not going to eat substrates, especially when they're hungry. They could actually wait until you're giving them food. But if you do miss a couple of meals, then your bearded dragon is going to start eating whatever it could find, and sometimes it will start munching on the substrate. So definitely have a good routine for your bearded dragon. And personally, I would not put a baby bearded dragon inside of a bioactive enclosure. There's just too many things going on. I would say it's not a good foundation for a baby bearded dragon to grow up in. However, a couple months old, they're already established and they probably would thrive inside of a bioactive enclosure. Okay, so now moving on to the pros. Now, number one on the list, I would have to say that you have to clean less. Now, yes, you still have to go in there and clean whenever you see, you know, your bearded dragon go to the washroom and whatnot. But I've noticed that I'm cleaning a lot less because of the cleaning crew that I have in there. It's doing a pretty good job of breaking down the waste and consuming it. And by the time I go there, there's not much that I have to clean. However, I don't know how this is going to hold up for an adult bearded dragon, as adult bearded dragons tend to go to the washroom a lot more. And I don't know how this would work for a bearded dragon that is recovering from maybe, you know, a bacteria infection if they have diarrhea. I don't know how that would work, but I definitely have noticed, at least with my bearded dragon that's healthy, that it's bulletproof. You're cleaning a lot less, you're just spot cleaning, you're moving things around, and things look great. Which leads me to the next one, is that things look great. It looks a lot more nicer, it looks a lot more pleasing, it looks more naturalistic. You know, there's nothing wrong with keeping a bearded dragon on tiles or paper towels, but I do find it that it's just a lot more pleasing to the eye and you're enjoying it a lot more. I do love the fact that I have to go in there and take care of the plants. I might move things around. I might even add more plants and more branches to it. I definitely have gotten a lot more compliments having the bioactive enclosure, and I do plan moving forward to upgrade it a lot more and make it even more nicer now that I got the hang of it. I didn't want to go in there and spend a ton of money and basically have it all go to waste, because I'm not the greatest when it comes to keeping plants, and I didn't want to get a whole bunch of plants that would just die on me, because that would just be horrible. And I didn't also know how my bearded dragon would respond. But now that I do enjoy the look of it and I do enjoy the process, I definitely probably am going to start slowly doing it to every single one of my reptiles, which is kind of crazy, you know, because for me, for the longest time, I was like, I don't know how bioactive enclosures will work for bearded dragons, but it seems to be working. So I'm going to give it a couple more months before I make that decision. So the next one, a lot of you may be able to relate to it. Personally, for me, because I have so many other reptiles, I definitely have noticed a difference in smell. Not only does the bearded dragon bioactive enclosure have like close to no smell, whenever my bearded dragon goes to the washroom, I don't have that strong smell of bearded dragon poop. I know a lot of you guys can relate on this. You know, for me, I own about 10 bearded dragons, so when they go to the washroom and I don't have any substrate, I'm using, you know, tiles, I definitely smell it when I enter the room. At least with the bioactive enclosure, it basically takes that smell away and you just go in there and do your routine spot clean, add new substrate in, and you're good to go. You could even go in there and disinfect the area if you really need to, but for the most part, I really do like the fact that the bioactive enclosure has almost no smell. It looks great, it takes away, it breaks down the waste and everything, and it's almost like it's taking care of itself. So I really do enjoy it. There is some modifications that I do want to do to it before I actually make the commitment to put all of my bearded dragons on bioactive enclosures, but it's definitely one of those things where it's trial and error. I have noticed a lot of people making videos about it and, you know, putting their own spin to it. So I'm definitely doing a lot more research. I'm completely new when it comes to bioactive enclosures for bearded dragons, and I'm sure a lot of you guys who are watching this have so many questions. So in the comment section down below, let me know your questions when it comes to bioactive enclosures, and maybe I'll do a Q&A video just talking about my experience with the Bioactive enclosure for bearded dragons. But with that being said, hopefully you guys learned a thing or two. Be sure to like this video. Let's try to get at least 500 likes on this video. I know you guys can do it. You guys are awesome. But with that being said, I'm Lord of Lion, keep blood pumping, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.
You gotta hit that notification, hit that notification, hit that notification button, baby. You gotta hit that notification, hit that notification.